I'm working late because I'm a streamer. Not really. It's early. I did just finish breakfast. Chris made eggs over easy, white bread with delicious buttery butter and toast, and bacon. Breakfast champions. And I had a nice walk this morning, continuing to stretch my bum leg. We're going to do some news reaction stuff this morning. And then we're going to roll into a No Man's Sky stream after that, I believe, is the plan. I might change my mind midway through. We might go do something else, but that is the current plan. I got Smeagol over here today. He's still. I don't want to move the camera. It's too much of a pain in the butt to get it back. But do I not have this window maximized? Well, herpity derpity. It is now. So we're going to start off this morning with the Enshrouded Back to the Shroud Update 3 highlights. So this just went live.
Welcome back, Flame.
We're going to watch this whole video here really quick, and then we're going to hop over to the Steam page and read through the update in all of its glory. If you have not played Enshrouded, I would get on it. It is a really fun crafting survival game with a fantasy RPG kick. I've played it here on the channel, not in a little while, but we did do a multiplayer group for about 3 months. Had a lot of fun in it. Saw everything there was to do at the time that we played. And then they've added more stuff since then. Agua coming in for a resubscription over on Twitch for their 4th month in a row. Says keep up the amazing work. Thank you so much for that. For those of you tuning in for the first time today, I am live every day on YouTube and Twitch. Typically we go at 11 a.m. Central Time. I am starting early today because we're doing news first and then a game after. So I'm a couple hours early, I think. What time is it? It's like 9:15 a.m. Yeah, I'm a little bit early today because I wanted to do the news first and then we'll move into the gaming. But you never know. Sometimes I go live early. Sometimes I go live in the 8 afternoon. So you'll want to subscribe in both places to get all the updates. And as always, you can support where you want, whether it's on Twitch, like Agua, thank you very much, or if you're over on YouTube, there's memberships and donation options in both places, plus a Patreon. Check it out. Let's watch this trailer and then go check out their Steam page. Let's see what Enshrouded has been up to since the last
Welcome back,
update.
Flameborn. We've got a thrilling new update for Enshrouded, features and improvement based on your feedback. Let's dive into what's new. First up, we're introducing configurable difficulty and gameplay settings that work across all game modes, single player, multiplayer, and dedicated servers.
This is huge. I did not know they were doing this. This is huge. So we've just been talking about this in No Man's Sky. Because in Starfield and all the games I play, I like adjustable difficulty. This is great. One of the reasons I love adjustable difficulty in these crafting survival / base building games is that when I just want to play the RPG component, I can leave the survival settings on and normal. But when I do base building, I really hate having to deal with getting attacked by creatures while I'm also trying to like place something and rotate it and get it on the right height map and adjust the terrain. Like I like having a creative mode for building structures and then the normal difficulty survival mode for when I'm actively adventuring. So this is a huge, huge update for them just with this alone. Relaxed, default, hard, survival, and custom. And then you can adjust all these different components, which is really cool.
You asked for more control, and
Dennis
we've
says sleep
delivered.
is overrated.
We've added several
Yeah.
new difficulty presets to customize your experience. The default difficulty remains as the baseline, recommended for the first-time players. The relaxed preset provides fewer, less lethal enemies and increases resource generation, perfect for those who love base building and light-hearted adventuring.
What's up,
The
Babylonian?
hard preset ramps up enemy numbers and aggression for a tougher combat challenge. The survival preset is for players who want a more old-school experience, adding extra survival mechanics and more aggressive enemies.
Looks phenomenal.
Finally, a custom setting where each preset can be freely modified. Crank 1 or all of the 30 game settings up to 11. Mix and match and tailor your adventure.
Oh, that's a lot. You have fallen.
I might have cranked it a little bit too much. Moving on. This is the first implementation of that system, so as always, give it a try and share your feedback with us. Next, we're introducing collection props for your
Collection
base.
props.
Now you can display your equipment like armor pieces and weapons on newly available craftable props such as the mannequin or weapon stands.
Oh, that's
Swap complete
cool.
armor sets with the press of a button.
So we get weapon racks and armor racks, and you could put the things you found in the game and crafted the game on those racks to display as trophies. Dude. Oh, by the way, I did read something today in the patch notes before when I was scrounging through. Vanity armor's here. So we now have the ability to have customizable vanity armor. I think they're going to talk about that because you can also see over here on the bottom right, it says equip all as vanity. I'm probably getting ahead of myself here.
You can also find collectibles like fossils in the world and display them on decorative shelves, adding a
Ooh.
personal touch to your
See,
dwelling.
it's just getting better and
We've
better.
also added 3 new customization options for your player characters: skin complexion, eye color,
Nice.
and eyebrow color. And of course, we've included several quality of life updates to enhance your gameplay experience. Improvements to blocking and parrying with more reliable
Blocking
reaction
parrying.
times and
Oh, that was a
transition
cool
between
transition
weapons.
to the bow
A
and weapon.
reworked
Oh, hang
crafting
on. He
menu
even said that.
featuring
Hang
bigger
on.
preview images
Hang
and
on.
easier navigation weapons. Improvements to blocking and parrying with more reliable reaction times and better transition between weapons.
Better
A reworked
transition
crafting menu
between
featuring bigger preview
weapons. I would need to log in and see what that's actually like because that was one of the things that earlier I was sometimes would get confused because it's all in your hotbar. And sometimes you have multiple hotbars are open, one for crafting and survival, one for harvesting, one for combat, and sometimes you get confused which where you're at. So I would love to see what their new armor things look like, or excuse me, what the new weapon transfer transition sequence looks like.
images and easier navigation. Several points of interest throughout the world have been reworked or improved. We've also added a few new locations in Blackmire and Kindle Wastes. And of course, ongoing class balancing based on your valuable feedback.
That's a brand new. That looks like a new skill tree. Opportunity line. Beastmaster, Ranger, Assassin, Trickster, Wizard, Healer, Battle Mage, Tank Warrior, all those are there, but that looks different. Increases the multiplier of the Merciless attack and sneak attack by 100%. Okay, so we've got some new skill tree stuff.
As for the mage, gameplay changes were made concerning the comfortable usage of wands and staffs, the survivability and their effectiveness in the early game. If you want to find out more, make sure to read the full patch notes. But
We're going to
wait,
read them in a minute.
there is more. We hope you
I
enjoyed these
love
new
it.
features and improvements. We are already working on the next 2 updates and we'll be sharing more on what's next for Enshrouded soon.
Nice.
Until then, happy adventuring and we'll see you in the next one.
All right, let's go take a look at the actual patch notes real quick. Go to the Steam page. Get this open here. They should really link directly to the patch notes from the video, but that's okay. Third update here, new ways to tailor your Enshrouded experience to suit the way you like to play. This one's focused on adding improvement to existing features or quality of life changes, as well as fixes and polish. So we watched the video version of this. So those of you who want to read the full patch notes, come to the Steam page, go to the volume 7.3.0 patch notes update. I am not going to read everything in this patch note. I will put a link to these notes in my video once this goes out as its own thing pulled out from the stream. But they've got some highlights here. The difficulty default setting is still present as the baseline. We would recommend it for first-time players. They've also got relaxed, hard, survival, and custom with some pretty good explanations in the video of what those look like. They've got another article on the knowledge base on how to set up your own difficulty settings on the server side. They talked about collectible props and showed those off, new character customization options. I wonder how this, see it says for new players. So if you have an existing character, you won't be able to adjust it at the moment. This is just for new player characters. So you can change, there's new skin color options, new eye color options, new eyebrow colors, and 6 new presets, it says. Quality of life balancing. They've reworked the crafting menu to have bigger preview images, easier navigation, several new POIs, improvements to blocking and parrying. It's still a work in progress, and further improvements are planned for the next updates. Class balancing continues to be worked on, taking into account the feedback from the community. For the mage gameplay, changes were made concerning the comfortable usage of wands and staffs, as well as the survivability and the effectiveness in the early game. That's a very interesting component to me because I did try the mage very early on and decided I didn't like it because I didn't, the wands felt good, but everything else, the casting felt really weird to me, and there were some targeting issues and everything else. So I'm really interested to see what they've done. It says comfortable usage of wands and staffs. So did they I'm assuming that means they reworked how that um, functions. Dun, dun. Okay, there's a whole bunch of gameplay notes here. Now possible to interact with secret doors while climbing a ladder. Weapons now show the maximum level that can be achieved by upgrading the weapon. Updated the XP for leveling up. The beginning of the game should feel similar, but in later regions, the level ups now need slightly more XP. Rework behind the scenes to improve the parry and block features. This was necessary as the mechanics were affected by several subtle yet impactful glitches that could render the experience unreliable, if not frustrating. While a part of the rework itself can be felt on its own, it generally gives the players more control, power, and consistency. The visual indication of the parry windows is still something we are working on, as well as further polishing of anticipation animations for all enemies. That's good to know. So they're continuing to rework animations. Um, they've got the general gameplay changes here. Um, okay. Vortex subtree has been restructured. Absorb, Snap, and Soul Leech are now connected to the Warden skill. Okay. Mage gameplay and fixes. Physical armor values on mage armor sets have been increased. Increase the projectile speed for Fireball and Ice Bolt to allow, easier hitting of moving targets. Increase the damage of spells that are available in the early game, Ice Bolt and Fireball. Change the functionality of the Light Burst spell, which now has a dude. I might need to go back in and create a mage just to check this out. Improve the homing and speed of the healer spell. Projectiles are no longer blocked by walls. Tweaked the martyr spell to provide better support. A new skill is added to Battle Mage subtree called Life Essences. Oh man, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Plus we got building, crafting, and equipment stuff, and a whole bunch of stuff added to the game world. Tech improvements, user interface and localization. This is a pretty beefy patch, everybody. So for those of you who want to dive into it at your leisure, again, I will have a link to this in the video once this goes out as its own thing on YouTube. So for those of you watching it live on the multi-stream right now, you can just go over to their Steam page and check this out. But if you're watching this after the fact, don't forget, links are down below. It looks like a good update. At some point in the next week or so, I will be getting this installed on the new PC just to check out some of the new changes myself, get some hands-on stuff uh, on the new system. So stay tuned because I'm probably going to go in and specifically check out the mage stuff to see how that feels because it sounds like they've made a pretty transformational series of changes for the mage, which is great. The game is pretty freaking amazing. Um, I'm very, very pleased with Enshrouded. Okay, what else did we have here? That was the ranch stuff this morning. Okay, I remember I bookmarked these for yesterday to watch today. So it looks like at Comic Con, so there's a rework. Well, let's just get this opened and then we'll talk about this in greater detail. Let's skip your ad because I
Try
don't
new
want to see your
challenges, so
ad.
I did a show.
Um, let's get a thumbnail appropriate image up. So Ronald D. Moore, creator of the reimagined Battlestar Galactica, he also worked on a bunch of Star Trek stuff. He did Carnival for HBO. He's since gone on to do things like Outlander. Um, they've got a remake, a reboot of the Battlestar Galactica series coming down the pipeline from the guy who created the iRobot series. Um, and Ron had some thoughts on it, but he's also talking about the show in the time of AI that we're living in right now, and sort of the relevance of Battlestar Reimagined. Now, I still consider the Battlestar Reimagined show to be probably one of my, if not my ultimate all-time science fiction TV show like my favorite of all time. I've talked about it multiple times in various places on my channel. I really, really, really love BSG, the rework. I've loved pretty much everything Ron Moore has worked on. Obviously, he has hit and misses like everybody else, but generally speaking, he's a really good showrunner. So I wanted to sit and watch this because he has thoughts on AI and everything else that it ties in to Battlestar Galactica, and I believe that if I'm not mistaken, they're going to touch on the upcoming show as well. Yeah, Mr. Robot, not iRobot. I was thinking of the film, not the show. It's the creator of Mr. Robot. Sam Esmail is creating a new version of this. I did say iRobot, which was incorrect.
One of the coolest parts about San Diego Comic-Con is it gives us a chance to catch up with some of the people behind our favorite franchises. And as a major creative force on guest certainly fits the... Thank you
Let's
for
skip
joining
forward.
Time's over. Ronald D. Moore, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Out here in the loudest balcony in the world, but it is great. It is Comic-Con. Sam Esmail, the creator of Mr. Robot, will be making a new Battlestar Galactica series. AI is a central part of that world. What about the current state of artificial intelligence do you think is important for BSG to address?
I think it's hard not to address it if you're doing Battlestar Galactica, because it was certainly baked into, everything that we were doing was talking about the Cylons were true, sentient, self-aware AIs, that walked around and make...
Caprica, by the way. One of the things I really liked about Caprica, which was the prequel show that they were working on after BSG aired, was they were really diving into the beginning of the sentient steps of sort of the robots and what the Cylons were becoming as they evolved. It was definitely a major component of the show, a sentient AI and the aspect of whether or not these creatures have souls and whether or not they're worthy to live and all these things. I had a lot of fun with the storylines throughout there. Um, it was an overall generally pleasant experience. It was also one of the things I really liked about BSG was in the middle of the writer strike that happened during like season 2 or 3. Um, because they were on strike, they ended up just creating like this web series that was done, which was basically a bunch of the lesser actors working in this short series that was produced, where they were all in this like concentration camp living underneath the Cylons. And it was from a storytelling perspective, it was a really, really interesting arc that they went for. Sort of looking at the reverse of humans controlling robots and then robots being in control. Some fun stuff there. What's up, Kyle Talks? Bubblini says Uncharted has a really gorgeous sense of scale and setting. Great game indeed. Bub says the only complaint with the reboot of BG was the ending bits with the Boomer Rock song. It's a great show. It is a great show.
But then Battlestar was an opportunity I couldn't pass up, and I do enjoy being in space, so I continue to do things in that area.
I mean, do what you love. We recently passed the 30th anniversary of Next Gen's final episode, All Good Things.
Yeah.
Wow.
Looking back on it now, is there anything you wish you had done differently when the show ended?
No, it's a miracle it turned out as good as it did. I mean, it was Brandon Braga and I wrote it together, and we wrote it quickly, like in a month. We weren't expecting to write the finale of the series. We thought that the late Michael Piller was going to write it himself.
By the way, this scene, I love how they brought this back around in Picard with them playing poker again. Very cool, like homage to the history of the series as Star Trek has continued to evolve. Really cool stuff. By the way, as much as I love Ron's work on Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica, if you haven't watched Carnival, I know it got canceled after I think 2 seasons on HBO, but it was such a good. No, they're talking 30th anniversary of Next Generation Babylonia. Yeah, not Battlestar Galactica.
And he asked us to do it.
30
and it
years
just all
since the
came
finale.
together. It was one of those great.
What I was just talking about.
It was lovely. It was great to see the gang back together. I got a tremendous amount of satisfaction to see Picard again, and Riker, and Data, and Worf, and and Troy, and Beverly, and I'm forgetting names, I'm sure, but it was really fun to see the characters again. It meant a lot that they got back on the Enterprise, and I thought that was wonderful. I also follow Strange New Worlds, which I think is a tremendous show. I think it really captures captures the spirit and the ethos of the original series, and because that's what.
By the way, the preview for season 3 of Strange New Worlds went up yesterday, and I did a reaction video to it last night. If you haven't checked it out, make sure to check it out. It looks pretty fun. I can't wait for season 3 of Strange New Worlds. It's fun Star Trek. It's just really fun. Liam says, I watched a lot of Next Generation with my grandma growing up. Yeah, my grandparents loved it too.
Drew so many people into Star Trek
That's kind of where
to
I
begin
first
with,
was
like me.
introduced to it. That and the X
I
Files.
think it's a wonderful show. I think it's incredibly well made, and I love it.
I think it genuinely captures this ethos of why we should strive for this world. Shifting gears a little bit, as Outlander nears its end, should fans expect the end of Claire and James' story to be bittersweet? Could the conclusion be more open-ended, or are we truly seeing the last of them?
Well, of all the things I could talk about, I probably can't tell you anything about the ending of
I had to try.
Yeah, you got to try. Good effort, but no, you're gonna have to wait. And I know it's a very special ending. I know Matt Roberts, the showrunner, who worked very hard on it with his team of writers, for quite a while. And I think it's gonna be something everyone's gonna love.
All right, I have one last question, and it is a lightning round. What is your favorite episode from each of your shows between Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Outlander, and For All Mankind?
Wow.
Do they exist for you?
That's tough, because
Hold that thought. I did not know he was behind For All Mankind, which, by the way, is a show that I have not watched yet. It's on my list of shows that I want to get caught up on this year. I've been recommended it by multiple people, and it's just sort of finding a slot. If it's something I can watch with Chris, it's something that takes more time. If it's something I just binge watch myself, I did not know that he was involved with that. I've not it's TV has not been a main priority of mine for like the past 6 months or so. I watch Star Wars, Star Trek, and occasionally I'll watch things with Chris that pop up. But I did not know. We are following Outlander. Chris and I have been following that show since it started, but I didn't know that he did For All Mankind. Yeah, Liam, I've heard really good things about it. So it sounds to me like if he's involved, which I didn't know, I definitely need to go. Let me look this up really quick because. For All Mankind. I know it has that Dutch actor who I really like. Why am I blanking on his name? Dun, 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 dun. Hang on, I'm trying to find the link that I want. Yeah, Joel Kinnaman. I knew it had Joel Kinnaman in it, and I really like him as an actor. I'll be damned. Created by Ronald D. Moore. I did not know that he was behind For All Mankind. That just now became a #1 priority for me to get caught up with. It is currently, as of April 2024, it has been renewed for a 5th season with a spin-off series titled Star City, now in development. Well, hot damn. How many episodes are per season? 10 episodes per season? Oh, I'm watching that. I wonder if Chris would want to watch it. Nah, if I'm going to binge watch it, I probably better do it on my own. And then if it's good enough, I'll recommend it to her. Well, I now have a new agenda. I'm going to be watching For All Mankind now that I know that he's a part of that. Somehow that slipped under my radar.
Probably from Galactica. I'm still very fond of the episode 33.
That's the first episode, baby.
Of the first season.
First
I thought
episode
it was
of the first
like a second
season.
pilot for the show almost.
It's such an intense
I love
episode,
the structure
too.
of it. I thought it was a challenging show and a really interesting, different way of going.
Every 3 minutes, baby.
I'm very fond of the wedding episode. I thought it worked beautifully, and it was wonderfully acted and directed, and I thought it was a great piece of writing by Anne. And on For All Mankind, I'm very fond of the Hi Bob episode, which we did, and it was all about them watching the Bob Newhart show, and of course Bob Newhart just passed away. But I love that whole episode of them stuck in the base and watching one sitcom over and over again and reciting the lines to each other. I think it's something everyone here at Comic-Con can relate to when you watch episodes so much that you know the lines of dialogue and can act them out yourself. And I thought that was a really interesting show. Again, tremendously acted and directed, and I'm really proud of that one.
Fantastic. You've created and worked on so many different worlds. I have to ask, do you have any interest in writing a video game?
Sure, I don't know anything about writing a video game or what that would be like. I think it would be a fascinating challenge
He
just to
would do a
learn
good
what the
job.
process is. It sounds like it must be an enormous amount of writing because the
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 iterations,
possibilities
yeah.
of what you can do, especially if you're doing an open world, must be
Yeah.
really daunting. So yeah, I'd be very curious to know what that would be like.
I mean, they truly can end up being hundreds of hours of content.
Yeah.
If you had to maybe pick a kind of video game, is there one you might lean into more?
It would probably be some kind of space-based adventure. I don't know off the top
Somebody
of my
out there
head
right now is
exactly
going to
what
be,
world I would
Ron
do,
Moore's
or
working on a
it'd either
space
be that
game.
or it would be like a western, like
Oh,
a
Western would
yeah.
be good.
Okay, that's interesting to
could
me,
do-
and now my interest is piqued, but that was a theoretical question, unfortunately,
Yeah,
for now.
theoretically.
All right, Ronald, thank you so much for joining us out here today on our balcony. There's a lot more to come from San Diego Comic-Con, so stick around.
That was kind of cool. I have to say that Ronald D. Moore doing a Western would be a lot of fun. I'm really interested in right now. Um, what is his name? Why am I blanking on his name? Kurt Sutter, who is the creator of Sons of Anarchy and um, all the spin-offs, and he's done some other great stuff. He is currently, I've covered it a couple times here on the show, on the channel. He has a Western in the works right now that's coming out. I want to say next year, which it's a family of people living in the West. It sounds a lot like what he's done with some of his other shows with like Sons of Anarchy and um, sort of that familiar element where you've got the family at play. And I know he's going to be playing in the Western space. I would love to see Ron Moore play in the Western space. That could be a lot of fun. He's done a great job with Outlander, which is not really it's not sci-fi. It does have science fiction elements to it because of the time travel, but it wasn't space, you know? So I would love to see what he could do with a Western. I would be totally on board with that. So yeah, could be fun. I like Ron Moore, man. I also like Kurt Sutter. Kurt Sutter's another really good um, showrunner. What was the other one? We've got Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power showrunners talking about a new form of Sauron. I'm interested to see what they talk about here because um, the um, the idea that I know they show it in the trailer, right? Um, and it's in the book, but when Sauron appears to Celebrimbor, he appears as one of the Valar, and he appears in this way that is very, like I'm an angel coming down from heaven. And they did have a shot in the trailer where you see Sauron presenting himself to Celebrimbor in that manner, and Celebrimbor is like in shock and awe of this figure. I wonder if that's what they're going to be talking about in this video. Let's go ahead and open this up and see what the showrunners of Rings of Power have to say. The video is titled Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power showrunners reveal Sauron's new form, which may just be them. Yeah, I don't care about the ads.
Be a darkness.
Hey, let's.
The Rings of Power returns to Prime Video on August 29th. Here to set the stage for Season 2 are showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay. Welcome both.
Thanks, Kim. Good to be with you.
How you doing?
We're so happy that you're here talking to us about what's to come. Now, we know that there's going to be a darkness spreading across Middle Earth in this season. Which character do you think will be most challenged by this growing threat?
Good question. Well, we got a lot of characters in the Rings of Power, as anyone who's watched the show may know. This season's really about Sauron, and sort of the focus of Sauron's strategy to conquer Middle Earth is gaslighting, manipulating,
they are going to
and
show it.
deceiving Celebrimbor, the Elven Smith, played by the amazingly talented Charles Edwards.
I think he's probably got the most rough emotional season in terms of what he's got to go through.
He's got a tough road to hoe.
Anyone who's got to hang out with the Dark Lord for a while and try to make something together is going to experience some real problems because Sauron needs Celebrimbor. And the scary thing about Sauron is that while a lot of villains will exploit your weaknesses, Sauron sees your strengths and exploits those to try to get his evil ends done.
I can just see myself screaming at the screen, no, don't listen, but we
If
have
that happens,
ideas.
we've done our job.
As you mentioned, Sauron is no longer in
Anatar,
hiding.
exactly.
How will we see him evolve out in the open now?
Did you want to?
Sure. Well, we're going to see Sauron actually, and this may be as a spoiler here, but that is not played by Charlie Vickers.
Oh?
Interestingly enough. We will also see Sauron that is not even in human form, and it is in sort of creature form.
Creature form not played by Charlie Vickers. Is that as much as you're going to give me on that?
Well, there's a bit of a slimy monster in a trailer. That's what we're talking
Okay,
about.
okay.
Well, it sounds to me like what they're going to show us is Sauron in all of his many forms to give a relevance to the fact that he's able to come in as Anatar and deceive Celebrimbor. If I had to guess, that's what they're talking about here. Um, the fact that he can appear as many different things, many different beings to reach his end goal. I'm all for it. Like I said, everything I've seen so far about season 2 has me. I hesitate to use the word hopeful, but I am looking forward to season 2. I was not necessarily looking forward to season 1 that much, but everything I've seen so far about season 2 has me going, you know what? They actually look like they're doing stuff that's more in line with the book version of events. I understand that there will still be a lot of them playing around with the lore, and that's fine. That's their prerogative for spending $1 billion to get the rights to play around with that IP and to play in that sandbox. I'm along for the ride. I will of course critique as I see things, but it also looks like it could be a lot of fun and much better than season
We
1.
got some clues here.
The puddle blob, Sauron.
All right, I'm looking forward to that
Yeah.
in his new form. But
But then
speaking,
obviously also Anatar. We're going to see him with, as we see in trailers now, we're going to see Sauron as Anatar, who is the Lord of Gifts. As he presents himself to Celebrimbor as a sort of a messenger of the gods, who is coming to bring him crucial knowledge that he needs to create his masterworks, the rings.
oh
But before
boy.
long, his true colors come out, and he's just plain Sauron. Charlie Vickers has an amazing season. We're really excited for people to see his
Nice.
work.
And you got to watch as his costumes evolve over the season also. They go from sort of almost biblical prophet, sort of light white robes, down to these sort of dark, feathered, more evil-looking get-ups.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to look forward to that. I'm going to follow the
That's really cool that they said that because I will say that for those who don't pay attention to costuming and lighting, that does have a heavy impact on people's perception of scenes when it comes to television and film. So doing that is a really cool way to show like the fall of light to dark. That's a very interesting thing to focus on. It'll be cool to see it come through to see how the costumes have evolved in this season as well.
costume changes as we move along throughout the season. But speaking of the trailer, it did give us new looks at new creatures for the series. We saw
We saw Balrog
Ents,
and Ents.
what appeared to be a troll. Can we talk a little bit more about their particular importance in this season?
Well, that troll we should tell you a little more about. That's Damrod the Hill Troll. And anyone in Middle-earth knows he's a famous warrior and has been searching for glory for hundreds of years and has killed dragons and ate their bones and all kinds of other horrible things. He also talks, and he's voiced by the amazingly talented Ben Walker, who also plays the High King of the Elves.
Oh.
We did like a phone a friend, and he came in.
And Ben Walker, and who may eventually fight the troll. So actually, for superfans, they could see Ben Walker fighting himself.
You're introducing the elf, Keir Dunn, a very wise character from Tolkien's Legendarium. What can you tell us about his role this season?
Well, Círdan is one of the oldest, wisest elves in Middle-earth. And he's someone that you go to when
Oh, that's
things are
Ben
not going well
Rothstein.
for advice.
By the way, he did a fucking amazing job as the general in the Isaac Asimov Foundation series. His portrayal of that tortured general who he's doing what the emperor wants because he sees no other choice, but he's literally his heart is bleeding for his people, and they throw him in jail for years. They separate him from his lover, and they torture him for years. Then he finally gets out, and he's like basically defying the emperor, trying to save the people. His performance in season 2 of Foundation, if you haven't watched it yet, it rivals everything that Lee Pace did throughout the season. I mean, if you haven't watched Foundation at all, you definitely need to watch Foundation. Also, he did a good job. There was a show he just did. God, it's been a couple of years ago. It only got one season. It was like a superhero show where he played the brother of another character, and I'm gonna blank on it now. Chris and I watched it. It only ran for one season. He's a great actor, right? I'm thinking that's Ben Rothstein, right? Yeah, I think.
Elves are all old and have been around for thousands of years, but he's among them revered as someone who's especially wise. So we're going to see Elrond actually crossing paths with Círdan.
I may have misspoke on that name because I was reading what was underneath the credits, and then I just realized that was I think that was the credit of the photographer, not the name of the actor. Hang on. I got that confused. It's not the name. I could swear his name is Ben something or other though. Hang on, hang on, hang on. We're gonna go look this up real quick. I'm gonna find it. I want to find out what his name is because I could swear it's a Ben something or other. It is. His name is Ben. That actor's name is Ben. It's Ben Daniels. So I've totally. That's why my brain associated that with him, was thinking that that was Ben Rossi, but that was the photographer. This actor's name, and I'm gonna go look up the show he was on too. We're gonna go back to that shot really quick so that I can uh, reiterate. Love his work, but this is Ben Daniels is his name as an actor. I got confused about the last name. Phenomenal actor. I can't wait to see what he brings to the table with his role as Kieran. Yeah, he played General Bel Rios in Foundation and Jupiter's Legacy. That's what the show I was thinking of that Chris and I watched, where he played one of the superheroes in the family. Really good actor. I've seen him in other stuff too, but those are the most recent things that I've come to see, which I really enjoy. Um, Good stuff.
Revered as someone who's especially wise. So we're going to see Elrond actually crossing paths with
What's
Yoda.
up, Commander Wolf?
And
Commander Wolf says, "What impact did the Lord of the Rings books have on you?" We could definitely talk about that in great detail. I've done videos on that before. The Hobbit was the first book that I ever read as a child. Like the first full book that I read when I was 5 years old was The Hobbit. And then I read the Chronicles of Narnia when I was 7, and then I followed that up with the Lord of the Rings trilogy when I was 7. Um, but The Hobbit was the first thing. So they were very impactful on me, but that's a whole nother conversation. I've got a series called Mondays in Middle Earth. If you want to check that out over on YouTube, we read through the entirety of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy over the course of a year and a half, and we did some entries into the Silmarillion as well. Um, that was about a 2 year series. There's a podcast slash vodcast series on YouTube where you've got everything you want to hear me rant and ramble and talk about in terms of Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings. The show is called Mondays in Middle Earth, so you can look that up on my YouTube channel.
going to him, trying to figure out what to do with these 3 new elven rings that have now kind of come to Linden, and especially to the Grey Havens, where Círdan is the master shipwright. He builds ships that sort of go back and forth between Middle-earth and Valinor. And so Elrond is going to go to him trying to seek inspiration for what he should do next.
And we should say Kieran is played by the incredible Ben Daniels, that we're super lucky to
Ben
bring in the
Daniels,
cast
they
this
just
season.
said his name.
He's
Yeah.
so awesome.
See,
Excellent.
here's what I got confused.
Well, I did
Oh,
see that Elrond
they
seemed
turned it.
very opposed to
There was a
using the
credit down
rings
here that
in the
confused me.
trailer. Is that what's going on?
A little bit. There's we have to remember that these elves don't know yet what the rings will become, and so they're discovering it all sort of live. And the challenge about the 3 elven rings is that while Sauron never touched them, he was around in the sort of conceptual phase when the rings were being designed, and sort of the secrets of ring magic were being figured out. And so Elrond says, "Look, Sauron's hand was in this. We can't trust the rings."
This is the part of the trailer where I did criticize a little bit. I said that was the only part of the new trailer where I felt it was a little heavy-handed, because Elrond's like, "No, don't touch the ring, Galadriel. We don't know if Sauron's corrupted them." And we know as readers of the books that the 3 elven rings were protected. They were never touched by Sauron, and there's never any fear, nor was there ever any fear of those rings being corrupted. But they're definitely taking a little bit of creative liberty here to create tension in the show, which makes total sense when you consider it from the perspective of what the showrunners are saying, which is they don't know yet. They can only suspect. And because, Sauron was involved in the art of ring making that created those 3 rings, they still, at least one of them has a suspicion. And it does feel a little on the nose in the trailer. That was the one criticism I had. But that's probably my book lore tainting my view a little bit.
And his fellow elves are saying, "Well, we need to use the rings, or our people are going to fade and have to leave Middle Earth." So it's sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I'm going to be screaming no so much this season.
Again, that's the goal.
Okay, well, I got to ask though, Tom Bombadil, we know he's coming this season. JD, you've previously called him an anti-drama character. So with that in mind, how is he involved with what's going on? Or is he off doing his own things and maybe singing his own things?
Yes, there will be some singing from the wonderful
I
Roy
was gonna say
Kinnear.
it's both yes and yes.
Yes and yes?
Tom's a force for good, but he's very ambivalent, and he's sort of like above the world sometimes. And he's there to hopefully give the stranger a nudge in the right direction, but he's never going to push too hard. You got to listen very carefully to what he says and what he sings to figure out which way to go.
Okay, that's a clue for everyone watching, but you do. So Tom Bombadil and the stranger have a friendship?
They have a meeting.
An
and they have
interaction.
an interaction. Tom is so old and sort of mercurial and strange that might be hard to call him a friend because he's been around for thousands of years. But they definitely get to meet each other. And if I could be a fly on the wall for any pairing in Middle Earth, I would be there to watch the stranger hang out with Tom Bombadil.
And we should say Tom Bombadil's played by Rory Kinnear. Who,
Yes.
Rory's
again,
great.
Amazing, awesome. We're so lucky we found
His
him.
performance
All
is
right.
like
well, I think
Frankenstein.
fans are going to be really keeping their eye on
in,
that and his involvement as a
can't
popular
remember the name
figure
of the show now.
amongst
He's a
fans,
great
I'll
actor.
say. The stranger is widely believed to be Gandalf. I have a quote, "If in doubt, always follow your nose," and all that. Is there any comment on that or any hint
course
to
not.
how the character will develop?
I can say there are two teams. There's Team Gandon and Team Gandalf. So you have to decide which team you're on. But no. So really for us, this isn't one of these, sort of things where we're trying to purposely be concealing something or where there's some big rug
Bullshit.
pull coming. And really, the journey that we want fans to go on is the same journey that the stranger himself is going on, which is one of self-discovery. He's landed in Middle Earth. He doesn't exactly know who he is, what his powers are, how to control his powers. And he has to figure all those things out, and we want fans to go on that journey with him. But we can say that, yes, the name will be revealed by the end of Season 2.
Okay.
Okay,
Trying to watch your faces from.
That's very, very interesting that the stranger will be revealed by the end of season 2. So we will either get confirmation that he is Gandalf, or we'll get confirmation that he's somebody else, like maybe Saruman in his earliest iteration, or could be one of the other wizards we don't know. Could be Radagast. It'll be interesting to see what they confirm him as by the end of the season. But that's a cool confirmation to get.
My new
for sure.
clues on that, but maybe I'll just have to
You
wait.
got to play poker with us for a while to get our tells.
Oh boy,
I don't play
okay.
poker, by the way.
We're going to introduce a new segment, IGN Poker. Let's go. The Harfoots in the Rings of Power are notably a nomadic people who don't have the extremely relaxed quality of life you might remember from The Hobbits, but it did seem like through the actress who plays Nori, Markella Kavanagh, she said that she thinks Nori is trying to find a place for the Harfoots, maybe a place to settle down, maybe
The
a place
half, it's the
Shire-esque,
Shire.
shall we say. Are we leading her to the Shire?
We like to think with the show, you're always putting people on, long form arcs. And the idea that a nomadic people who are sort of always on the run have to keep their heads down. It's hard out there for a Harfoot. That maybe one day they might find a home where they're safe and they can actually chill out. Like that feels maybe kind of like the correct progression, but we don't want to spoil it any more than that.
Well, they don't have to spoil it because for those of us who have read The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, we know where the Harfoots end up. Like it's not rocket science. Like it's all of the hobbits end up in one way or the other end up in the Shire. Like so that's not a great big secret.
And especially, we always talk about like Titanic, where, in the end the boat is going to sink. You know where the story is going, but it's all about how and how we get there. And so, yes, we know that halflings will eventually end up in the Shire, but
Never
for the
mind,
journey
he just said it.
There's ahead for our Harfoots, it's about what are going to be the challenges along the way they have to overcome.
Well, we are so excited to be returning to Middle Earth on August 29th. Thank you both so much for stopping by, and for more from SDCC 24, stay tuned to IGN.
Oh my God, thank you.
Thank you. Can't wait to have you.
We will be doing a rewatch, Chris and I, of Rings of Power Season 1, leading up to Season 2. And I will, of course, be reviewing each individual episode as they go live once Season 2 is here. And we'll continue to cover things and have discussions about it. Not as much as I did for Season 1. Season 1's coverage and everything was a huge part of the early stages of my channel. We're still interested in it, but it's not the only thing I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of other different things now. But expect to see more Rings of Power footage as we move forward towards the launch of Season 2. What's next on the agenda here? There's an interview with the directors of Dragon Age from The Gamer, which we can take a look at. Let me get this.
Where we realized that the story really was
Do they have a title page or something I can look at really quick? Nope. So let me just timestamp this. Directors, Dragon Age, the Veilguard. Okay, so this is Gabriel Castaña, staff writer for the Gamer, sitting down to have an interview with the game directors of Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Will there be returning characters? Will the light prevail against darkness? Will our comic book and graphic novel knowledge of Dragon Age finally come into play? Are some of the questions being asked. Let's take a look at this exclusive interview with the directors of Dragon Age: The Veilguard.
Hey guys, my name's Gabrielle Castagno with The Gamer, and I am here with
John Epler, creative director for Dragon Age: The Veilguard.
Ashley Barlow, creative performance director for Dragon Age: The Veilguard.
Nice.
And we are here to ask them some questions at San Diego Comic-Con about the game that is coming out soon.
Can't
I
wait.
have a mix of questions from my colleagues and stuff. We have a bunch of big fans on our staff. It's obviously been some time since the last Dragon Age title, so how have you guys gone about refreshing your memories for the next game? Is this a return to the series roots, or are you trying something fresh, or is it a mix of both?
I think every Dragon Age game has always been a mix of both. So, I mean, Dragon Age 2, Dragon Age Inquisition, it's both taking what's come before and being respectful and making sure to pay honor to it, but also doing something new at the same time. So each
The
one's
franchise
had
has
its own cast of
always
characters.
evolved.
Obviously, each one's had a different protagonist. But yeah, I'd say a mix of both is pretty much where we're at.
Also, I would say that the one thing I've always appreciated about the Dragon Age franchise is that it always evolves the combat style slightly, and I know that's a sticky point for some people because some people want to remain stuck in the Dragon Age Origins phase. I much prefer the evolution. The combat in the new game looks absolutely phenomenal, like a blending of Mass Effect and what we've classically seen from Dragon Age. So it looks really cool. Again, taking elements of what we've seen before and blending it into something new, just like they're doing with the
Totally.
story.
We took like the inspiration of the great storytelling that BioWare is already doing, and they just elevated and we iterated on it, and it feels very fresh. Awesome.
So how did you guys decide on the change in name from Dreadwolf to Veilguard?
I mean, as we were building the game, obviously this is still a lot of Solus is a big part of the story of Dragon Age: Veilguard, but as we were building the game, as we were building the story, we realized that the story really was about the companions, the people that you bring along with you to stop the end of the world. And so rather than
I think
have
they
a
answered
title
this
that
in a
focuses
different
on
video
one
because I already
antagonist
remember
and
this
makes them
answer
the
in a
centerpiece of the
different
story,
way.
we wanted to go with a title that really emphasized that, that the Veilguard, that group of people you bring together to stop the end of the world.
So what have been some of the biggest changes implemented in the upcoming title that differentiate the gameplay from different games in the series? And was
Combat.
there anything that you wanted to do in that regard with this game but weren't able to?
So, I mean, I think every Dragon Age game has been very different in terms of how it approaches combat and gameplay. I think for us, the biggest thing we wanted to bring in was really the concept of creating these fantastic builds, these using abilities, choosing skills that really build the strategic layer on top of the moment-to-moment gameplay. I think it's very deep and involved customization system. It's this skill tree. We've shown a little bit of a preview of it. We'll show more over time. But it really allows you to just pick and choose how you want to build these characters, how you want to make them work together in ways that allow for really interesting strategic combinations, strategic tactics on the battlefield. So
I don't know if he's going to talk about it specifically here, but in the other video we watched, which was the one Game Informer did, I think, which was the like the making of the game, and they talked about all the different combos that can happen and how you can spec your companions to like give you access to combos based upon the way that you spec your companions. So we might, there might be 6 people who have the same characters in their party, but they have those characters spec'd in such a different way that you're going to see different combos happening between the characters on screen. I think that's a pretty unique way to do things, as opposed to everybody just having sort of like going back to Dragon Age Origins, everyone had a very fixed. Like you had the old lady Wynn, she was a healer. Like that was her role, was as the healer, and as an example, but having ways that these characters can be specialized out to counter whatever you decide to play with, whether you're doing a mage or an archer or a tank. That's pretty cool in my mind.
It's different because it's so many new characters. I mean, we have some sneaky surprises of returning loved characters, but that's the big
Morrigan!
thing. I mean, we have 700 new unique characters to talk to.
Again.
Well, it's
Claudia
not the
Black is
biggest
back.
game.
I'm sold.
It's big right, yeah.
Okay, so do you guys have a favorite region of the world that you've liked best or that you're most excited for fans to experience?
I really like. Well, I love Minrathous.
I mean, I love Minrathous as well, but instead of going with the same answer as Ashley, I'm going to go with something different. I really love Ravane. It's, that more tropical feel. Something we've never really been able to do before in Dragon Age is what does the coast of Ravane look like? Obviously, there's also Treviso and Antibes. There's so many awesome areas in this game that it's really hard to pick one because there's been so much love poured into how these areas look, and they all feel and look different, but also coherent and consistent with the style of the game as a whole. And I mean, that's always the hardest part. You build a world with a bunch of different spaces, making sure they feel like they belong together is challenging, and our team is knocked out of the park.
A question from my colleague. A lot of the marketing so far has seemed fairly jovial for a pretty dark series, but from the trailer, it looks like things are gonna get dark. So how do you guys go about balancing the lightness with the dark in this game?
Oh man, the writers did such a good job of adding like finding the light in the darkness of this story, and it's not without humor. You totally
Well, I mean,
have to
BioWare's
have it.
done a good
I
job
think
of that
cast
over the
brought
years
it out
with all of
nicely,
the games
and
they've created.
it's not something that we need to shy away from. I think it balances it out.
And I mean, I think the mix of light and dark has always been a part of Dragon Age. As far back as Origins, you had Alistair, obviously, wisecracking from the beginning.
Morgan
in
as
DA2,
well.
you had some lighter, funnier moments. In DAI, you had the card game of Wicked Grace with your companions. But I think it's that contrast. The dark moments don't land as well if everything is dark, everything is grim. But when you counterbalance them, I mean, I'll use DA2 as an example where you had the storyline with Hawk's mother counterbalanced with, some slightly quippier, lighter companions like Isabella and Varric.
Isabella was great.
And that moment hit
Pirate
hard
Queen.
because there was that contrast.
Exactly.
Haven't played
if
that game in a
everything's
long
dark,
time.
then it's kind of just depressing.
We need to bring you down.
Yeah. So for both of you, what was your favorite character design from the game, and what about them makes you choose them as your top pick?
Nev.
Come on. There's no picking favorites because they're all so good. I mean, you spend enough time with any of them, you're going to fall in love with them and then hate them at times, and fall in love with them and hate them at times. So I wish I could give you a favorite, but how about you guys choose? You get in and you tell us your favorite. I would find that more interesting.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, I love all the characters. I would say one of the more interesting character designs to me has always been Amrik Volkaran, the Necromancer. Just the way that they created this character is a little bit older, but also, kind of in the more classical Hollywood actor type with the... And I found the way that they built him to be that character super fascinating. And also, again, clearly, as we've seen from the fan base, they landed that, attractive older man. So I'm really excited for fans. But I mean, honestly, they're all fantastic, and I can't wait for people to meet all of them.
Is there a particular companion that you're excited to see return, and if so, who is it and why?
We're going to leave that to people to play the game. Obviously, there's Scout Harding, who's back, we've already announced, but other characters coming back, I think it's just going to be... I'm excited for people to see them, and especially see them in the context of having 10 years have passed since the last Dragon Age, both in the real world, but
Yeah,
also
Varric
in the
looks
world of
amazing
Theta,
for
so.
10
You have
years
to
having
let them
passed,
do
with
their
like the
own
rugged
intros,
beard and the
'cause,
longer hair.
that's the good part.
I like how everybody in the trailer had like a little information, like a little name. Like, that's cool. I like that. Is there any sort of canon path in the game that fans can consider the true one, or is it truly up to player choice?
That's a great question.
We get asked that a lot, especially because when we start doing ancillary products like comics, shows, people want to know what's canon. We have to decide one that is for that media canon, but I don't think there really is a canon state of the world. I do think there are some more interesting ones. I'm always a fan of the most chaotic and most strange paths through the game, but no, there's no canon. There's always what your world of Thetis is, what your people have done is kind of, it's your own canon. Canon is a very personal thing in Dragon Age.
Yeah, and it should be. That's what we wanted, right? Like,
I think the only time I've ever seen them make a stand is like with Mass Effect 3. There sort of is a canon ending. And I've heard that for the next Mass Effect, not what they're calling Mass Effect 4 because they're kind of choosing to skip Andromeda. I've heard that because they had to pick one of the endings from 3 as like the canon ending. And that's a case of coming back to a storyline 15 years later or whatever and saying, well, we have to pick one because there were multiple endings, which is the one that we would pick as like the default state. Also, games like Pillars of Eternity, Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, you have to have sort of a canon ending for the players who are coming into the second game who didn't play the first game. And because it's a game where it imports your character save, or it can import your character save from the previous game, there have to be like default canon decisions for the players who never played, so they can come in and when they're going through the character creation process, the game stops and says, "Okay, you're just this is like the canon ending." And having just played Dragon Age Inquisition, I've been playing that on the Xbox. I can tell you too that because I didn't have a previous save game file from everything else left over, when I started Dragon Age Inquisition, it does have a default setting that takes all of the like core moments and has those like as a default save state. So it's interesting to hear them say that they don't have an official canon in terms of we're never going to say this is the official canon, but in terms of like the character creation process and starting your character from fresh, they do sort of have an idea of these things happen in this order to get to the beginning of this game, if that makes sense. It might not make sense. Hopefully it does.
Choose your own path, choose your own adventure, and choose your own consequences. So I'm excited to see what people do.
Awesome. Kind of going off of that, how did the different choices that you make impact the gameplay down the line? If it's something that you can share, if there's something that you block yourself out of, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get too deep into details because I think one of the most interesting parts of choice and consequences is when those consequences are surprising and unexpected. But each choice, especially the major choices in the game, have significant consequences on gameplay, what content is available to you, but also how characters in the world regard you. No choice, no choice should be easy, and we never want to make players feel like there's a right choice. So there's always going to be a consequence, and especially, like I said, some that you don't expect, and some that change the world in real ways.
Yeah, leave it to their will.
Part of that is being able to customize the character is a really cool touch in this game. So what were some of the challenges in doing this, and how deep will the customization of the player character actually run?
I mean, yeah, it's our character creator. I mean, we've done a lot of work to make sure that it allows players to really be who they want to be. It's one of our core pillars of Dragon Age. Always has been, as far back as Dragon Age Origins. In this case, we were able to, leverage new technology, leverage new techniques to really take that customization even further. So, I mean, obviously, we've talked about character creator a little bit, the choices you make in the game, which faction you belong to, things like that affect your journey through Thetis and through the story of the Veilguard.
Ashley, what was the biggest casting decision for the game that you're most excited for fans to see, and how did you choose this person for that character?
I think the biggest casting decision for this game, that's a big statement.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, one of them.
Yeah, fair.
One of them, and
If they say Matt Mercer, I'm just going to be like, come on.
it's a collaboration casting, right?
Like, there's so many
and
other
the
great
ensemble
talents here.
that the companions create was basically where we started. And I've said this before. We put the character
Bringing
out on
Varric
the wall.
back is a big deal.
We saw
And
the
Hardy.
writing. We auditioned vastly, and we assured that the cast was very dynamic and complimenting and opposing to each other. So we spent a lot of time in getting those companions the juiciest they could possibly be.
Are there any plot threads established from the novels or the graphics that have made their way into the new game? And if so, can you share what those are?
I mean, plot threads, one of the things we do try to make sure with the games is that you don't need to have consumed all the ancillary content to understand what's going on. But obviously, I can go into a little bit. There's characters from the comics, especially the Missing, the most recent one, that show up in the game. So one pair of characters we've talked about before, Evka and Antoine.
This is really cool, though. This is what I would consider to be Easter eggs because this is a good example. I might even be able to give a better example of this. Is for those people who watched the Halo show that Paramount Plus did, which unfortunately just got canceled after second season. I was very sad to hear that because I was one of the people who actually really loved that iteration. But that's a perfect example of a franchise, of an intellectual property that has bridged the gap and exists in video game, it exists in television, it exists in novel format, comic format, all this different stuff. And there always has to be one that's like the main. And many people consider like the Halo games to be the default like state of the universe, and then all the other things, the YouTube series, the comic books, the TV show, the novels, are all sort of supplementary to what's actually going on. So when you see characters from those comics and books, everything show up in the games, it's like an Easter egg, and that kind of feels like what they're doing here, where it's like the games are the main popularity point for Dragon Age as a franchise. I'll be the first to admit I've never read any of the Dragon Age novels. I've never read any of the Dragon Age comics. I probably never will. But I love the games. And so I'm not going to have any clue who these characters are when they show up in the comics in the games. But the people who do get the benefit of that being like a massive Easter egg, which is always cool to see that happen. For me, it would be like stuff from Star Wars Extended Universe, aka Legends, like if Mara Jade was to ever show up as an official canon character, it'd be like, oh my god. But like when they took they've taken like the headhunter ship and made that canon in the shows, and also having different characters show up from the Legends universe. I'm at least familiar with it there, even though I'm not familiar with it here in Dragon Age. But it does work in terms of giving Easter eggs to the fans. So that's never a bad thing because Thrawn rocks, and I'm sure that somebody out there is going to have their favorite characters from the comics and books, etc., that show up in the games. Bubbleday says, "I love the setting name Thetis. Thetis, it just works. I do like that
One,
name."
two of the Grey Wardens. There's a but that in general, we just love to make sure that those characters have there's that continuity. So even if you so if you don't read the comics, don't read the books, you still know what's going on. But if you do, it gives you that extra level of texture. And honestly, the same is true even for the previous games. It's one thing where we want to make sure that if you play the previous games, you get that, those references, you get that extra context, that extra texture. But also we want to allow players who don't necessarily consume all that ancillary media to really get into the story of the game and understand what's going on. So
My colleague said that there's going to be roughly 140,000 lines of dialogue in the game. How did you guys go about casting and recording such a gargantuan task?
There's a world out there. There's a world in there. That's what, it takes time. This talent was casted throughout 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And, it's like driving across countries with them, the amount we spend in the booths, and they put their heart and souls into it. And you just, we have such a great team, the performance team, the EA talent team, all of our executives, our leaderships that speak into the casting. And
By the way, this is something that actually came up. I actually Googled this the other day and I couldn't find any information on this. But in regards to Starfield, which has 252,000 plus lines of spoken dialogue, this has 140,000 ish. I was trying to find out if somebody had ever put together like the total amount of time spent on spoken dialogue in Starfield, because I was genuinely pleased to see that the company behind Kingdom Come Deliverance, as they are preparing for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, just put out a video on their YouTube channel that takes every single cutscene from the first game. It's not all the spoken dialogue, but it's all the cutscenes from the game and compiled it into this supercut that's like 5.5, 6 hours long. And they just threw it up on their YouTube channel as a way for players who have never played the game before to watch this mini series if they wanted to, split up into, it's one huge mega cut, but you could split that up into however many episodes you want to get up to speed with the story before you go play Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And that got me thinking about how many hours worth of lines of spoken dialogue are there in Starfield? I couldn't find an answer to that, but it would be interesting to know, because they talk about 140,000 plus or whatever here. How much does that equate to in terms of hours of spoken dialogue? Because it's not indicative of how long the game is, but for someone who thinks about stuff like that, it's interesting to have that sort of data just to look at as a point of entry and say, oh, okay, so it's got 17 hours of spoken dialogue. That's a big deal, because like if I go on when I go on a photo shoot, I'm on a press tour, let's say I shoot 750 photos a day, and then I record 6 hours of raw footage every single day. That gives me a pretty good idea when I can break it down into the day by day and come back after a week and say, I've got 250 gigs of raw footage here, and I've got, 15,000 photos. You kind of know what you're working with at that point and can say, okay, this is going to be this big at the end of the day. It's not a big deal, but it's sort of an interesting talking point.
we got that, like I said, it's over 700 characters that you get to speak to. You're going to meet somebody you like and someone you don't like. Yeah, and everybody just worked relentlessly and tirelessly to record, and if needed, go back and re-record, because a lot of this recording happens one person at a time. Some of our talent are meeting for the first time.
Wow, that's why.
This weekend.
And then just a last question that we usually ask in interviews. Is there anything else that you guys would like to share that you think our readers should know about the project?
Honestly, we've talked a lot about everything a lot of the things I'm excited about. I think, and just generally, I'm really excited for players to play this game, see the characters, see the returning favorites, see how they all connect together into this, what I feel is a very fully realized world and a story with, again, a lot of consequentiality and a lot of characters that just have these exciting and interesting storylines.
Yeah, I think you said it. I'm just excited that it's going to get in players' hands and they can celebrate I know they're excited too because
Oh, I'm super
I've
excited.
seen them. So
I'm gonna
please
be playing the
enjoy it and
shit
play
out of
it to
this
its
game.
fullest and enjoy the worlds and the characters we've created.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time. Looking forward to the game. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I am also looking forward to the game. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Dragon Age: The Veilguard, still no launch date. We have gotten confirmation that it's confirmed for Steam Deck. It's not going to require the EA app, which has a lot of people questioning what's going to happen with the what's it called, the Rook or the Castle or whatever it's called, where your cloud saves are. Um, I can't answer that question, but we are coming soon. Were there any other videos I needed to talk about today? I know those were the big ones. Who Should You Romance? The Light and Dark of Middle Earth. Yeah, I don't need to really cover those. We're good. Let's have our Twitter real quick. See if there's anything here I want to take a look at. We already covered this. The first thing in the stream was the Enshrouded update, which is here. Dun, 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 dun. Make sure I'm not missing anything. "70 years ago, The Fellowship of the Ring was published." Holy moly. Oh, people are up in arms about Dungeons and Dragons 2024. I don't care. Ooh. Game Informer has copies of the Veilguard magazine. Like, that'd be cool. Oh, speaking of copies of things, I just got my PDF copy of Solas's campaign rulebook this morning. They sent me over a copy as a content creator. So probably not today, but I think tomorrow I'm going to be opening that up. I did already open it up and take a peek at it, but I'm going to open it up and do like a review for the channel. Um, and I have no time right now, but it would be cool to do an actual play series around Solas's world because it's 5th edition D&D. Um, it's it's a super fun world. The lore is pretty good. I love their CRPG. It's really interested to see how the tabletop plays. Harry Potter Quidditch Champions. I'm not going to play that. I have not seen Deadpool and Wolverine. I probably won't see it in theaters. I'll wait till it comes to home media. I'm 3 hours away from a cinema. I'm not going to go out of my way to watch films right now. Tons of people are saying they don't like the new D&D. I think people are still upset about the OGL. Dun, 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 dun. I wonder what's happening with the Knights of the Old Republic remake. Haven't heard anything in a while. Sucker Punch. That's a great movie if you have not watched this film. That's another Zack Snyder gem of a movie. Really enjoyed that. That's for Wizards, isn't it? Yeah. First close up of Ciarán Hinds, sorry, as as a wizard in the Rings of Power season 2. If that's not an early Saruman, I don't know what is, man. If that's not an early Saruman, I don't know what is. Seriously. That looks amazing. He's such a good actor. It's gonna be good. Oh, the season 3 stuff for Star Trek. Oh, Warhorse Studios says see you at Gamescom 2024. I'd say we're going to be getting some Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. How much money want to get? We get a Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 release date at Gamescom. Um, oh, I bet we're soon. Please be Christmas. I would love it to be a Christmas time game because that would be a great thing to want. To end my 2024 playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 through the month of December would be pretty freaking awesome. Um, all right, there's nothing directly in here that I need to take a look at, I think. Ooh, supposedly Christopher Nolan wants to purchase the Halo TV series rights. It'd be great, man. I already liked the version they did. I would happily see another version. I'm like Halo for me is like Star Trek and Star Wars. I'm always gonna watch whatever they put out. It's just fun television to me, and I think it'd just be really interesting to see what they pull out and come up with. Could be a lot of fun. All right, let's check the Reddit, and then if I don't find anything super interesting here, we're gonna switch over and go play something for a bit, everybody. It's about 9:30 here. This person says, after playing Ghost of Tsushima twice, I finally visited Tsushima Archipelago in Japan this summer. When I got back home, I tried to line up the perspective photos I took inside the game and with real life. That's a cool little side project. Games or bodies. I'm not seeing anything super interesting right off the bat here today. What game could you genuinely play forever and not get tired of? None. I don't want to play only one game forever. I've given some games many, many years of my life, and I have not regretted it. EverQuest 1, EverQuest 2, Star Wars: The Republic, Lord of the Rings Online, Red Dead Redemption 2, all games that I have hundreds, if not thousands of hours in, and have not regretted any moment of it. But I would not want to be stuck with one game forever, for the rest of all time. Pass. Least favorite type of game? Souls-like. Not a fan. There's nothing. This is all just like weird generic questions. Activision Blizzard released. This was actually an interesting thing that I read the other day. Here we can open this up. This was actually interesting. So if you want to go through all of this, um, essentially Activision Blizzard released a 25-page study with a split test where they secretly, progressively turned off skill-based matchmaking, and the too long do not read version is that yes, skill-based matchmaking work. Basically, when they turn off skill-based matchmaking and it's newcomers in with the pros who kick their asses, people rage quit. The people who are getting their asses kicked rage quit the game and they never come back. If you want people to play your game, that's suicide for your game. If people are rage quitting your game and it's a cooperative online multiplayer component and they're not playing your game, then you're failing at running an online live service game. So the study is essentially proving that skill-based matchmaking works because it keeps players playing the game because they're having fun going up against players of similar slash same skill. There are still flaws in the system. No one's disagreeing with the fact that there are, flaws in the system. But it's an interesting report if you want to go through it and read it at your leisure. It is really big and really long, and there's a ton of data in it. I've glanced at some stuff earlier. I have not dug into this in great detail, but for those of you who want to really dive into it, I could put this out and get a link to it because it's an interesting discussion about what it takes to run a successful online matchmaking style game where you're competitively putting people into the same environment, in a PvP setting. I don't traditionally play a lot of PvP stuff, but I have played my fair share of Warzone and things of that nature. And I know that some people game the system, but for the most part, one of the things I appreciate about skill-based matchmaking is that I'm a noob and I suck at shooting. So it's nice to be able to get put up against other people who suck at shooting. Because it makes me feel like I have a chance at winning and I'm actually able to get some kills. I'm actually able to do some things. I don't feel like I'm getting splattered the moment I'm on the map. So from the perspective of someone who's not very good at the game, I'm appreciative of the fact that it's there. I know not everyone shares that viewpoint, but it's a cool thing to look at if you haven't already done so. Um, Skill-based matchmaking. It does work. There's a study to prove it. Go read it at your leisure. Someone says if there's an apocalypse, then there's a cult. What is that screenshot from? I have no idea. Crusader Kings. This is an interesting conversation. This person says, I don't know if I've just been spoiled over the years. Is there a greater, did they write a greater? Yeah, they did write a greater discussion about this. Let me put a timestamp on this one because this looks like it could be a fun one. Okay, RPG games that have a good story, where the story is put ahead of the gameplay in terms of overall importance. They're asking a question here. It says, I don't know if I've just been spoiled over the years with great quality fantasy novels, but the RPG genre that I grew up loving has felt incredibly shallow and lacking to me anymore. And it's not hard to see why. Just about every game decides first on mechanics and seems to build a lackluster story around those, making sure these mechanics get used a lot. It's so blatant that game descriptions almost never say anything about the story at all. I'm going to say right out of the gate, you're not playing enough games if that's your perception. There are some amazing cinematic storytelling games out there, not the least of which are things like Cyberpunk 2077 and Phantom Liberty. Like, if you're not playing enough games, then yeah, your perception might be this. Or if you're playing only mass-produced Marvel-style games. But let's read the rest of this discussion. Roll for initiative, take attacks of opportunity, manage player location, the verticality of the battlefield, and turn-based tactical game RPG based on SRD 5.1 rule set. In Celeste, you make the choices, dice decide your destiny. Celeste, for example, there's nothing on the Steam page at all that says anything about the story of the game. So who cares if it doesn't say anything on the Steam page about the story of the game? They don't want to spoil it. Like, I can get where this person's criticism is coming from, but I've played Celeste. A matter of fact, I just talked about early in the stream. I just got my hands on Celeste's PDF campaign book that they sent me to go through, and we're going to be reviewing that here on the channel later. I've played Celeste all the way through, and one of the things I praised them on was the fact that they have this incredibly unique original world that they built their game around. The story is not the most original fantasy story ever written. It's very tropey in places, but it's still a fun story with an original setting. And this person bitching that the story isn't front and center on the Steam page doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Um, Probably because I've played the game and I can say that, well, I wouldn't, I might give you a synopsis of the story, but I'm not going to spoil the story in my Steam page for you guys. Like, if you look at our project, the most recent project we did, The Weave in the Void, like all you really know is that there's an epidemic going on. Um, there's something that's killing humans. There's tension between the human elements and the Fey elements. And your characters, whether you're reading the novel version, playing the tabletop version, or the point and click adventure game version, we don't spoil the story. We give you a high level view of what's going on. But what we really want you to focus on is the fact that the tabletop game is something where if you love D&D and D and you love Pathfinder, you're going to love this. If you love the Dragonlance novels, the Forgotten Realms novels, you're going to love our novel. If you love King's Quest and Quest for Glory and games like that, you're going to love our point and click game. Like, we're showcasing the mechanical reasons you might love it as opposed to the story reasons you might love it, even though it has a core central storyline that's here for everything. This person says, I'm here for the story. If the game feels good, there's a great bonus. I also am always here for the story. But it says here, it's so rare for me to complete an RPG these days because the story doesn't compel me forward. Baldur's Gate 3 and some of the Legend of Heroes games are the only RPGs I can think of that I've finished in the past 10 years. I'm going to come back to what I said earlier, which Dennis King just quoted me on. You're not playing enough games if this is your takeaway. So I feel like this criticism is completely invalid because they're not playing enough games. If they've only come across Baldur's Gate 3 and some Legend of Heroes games are the only RPGs they can think about in the last 10 years, they're not playing enough games. Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, Dragon Age Inquisition. Um, what else can I think of? Like Rogue Trader, Pathfinder Kingmaker, Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, Witcher 1, 2, and 3. Cyberpunk 2077, Cyberpunk 2077, and the Phantom Liberty. Like I've already listed like 20 games already off the top of my head. So I kind of feel like this person's complaint about there's not enough story-based RPGs out there. They just aren't playing enough games. Um, they edited to say maybe it wasn't being clear enough. I'm wondering if games like this are still being made. I appreciate all the suggestions so far, but absolutely hoping for modern games of this sort, ideally games from the past 10 years. Well, I've just listed a whole bunch of them. Um, Someone says, he said, edit again, stop listing 10 plus year old games. It's missing the point of the post entirely. So I'm assuming a bunch of people in the comments are listing 10 plus year old games. Oh, yeah, somebody mentioned Mass Effect 1 through 3 as well. Yeah, this person's listing a bunch of really old games. But they do mention Disco Elysium is another good one, Cyberpunk 2077, Alpha Protocol, Fallout New Vegas, Rogue Trader, someone mentioned. Um, the Yakuza series, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I do know it's out there for people. Um, Planescape Torment's way too old. Deus Ex is really old. Tyranny is another good example of that's an Obsidian game if I'm not mistaken. Final Fantasy games. Yeah, somebody did mention Owlcat, the two Pathfinder games which I mentioned earlier. I'm glad that all the Pathfinder. I'm glad that Owlcat games are being stood up here. Also, Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 from Larian before Baldur's Gate 3. I just feel like this person's question is completely invalid because they don't play enough games. They've looked at like 3 games and said, these are the games that I like the story on, and I just don't feel like any games have been made in the last 10 years that have story. And I'm looking at the 3 games they've played and said, well, then you're not really playing games. Because there are, I mean, even Warframe, which is a free to play game, has a really good story at the core of it. Um, you know, plenty of good examples. If you like actually get out there and play games. Cool. All right. Homeless Bird says the Yakuza legal drama spin-off Judgment is a favorite of mine. Plays a detective. By the way, I just played, as example, 2 games that had really good stories. Flintlock, Siege of Dawn, and Nobody Wants to Die, which was a great science fiction noir game, detective noir series. It felt a lot like Altered Carbon, you know? Short games, but games that were literally focused on story. Maybe Flintlock was a little more combat oriented, but looking at Nobody Wants to Die, that was 100% cinematic storytelling. Like, there's no combat in that game. It's literally a walking sim. It's like a point and click adventure game where you're just getting lots of cutscenes with voice dialogue and just tons of narration. Like, great examples of story-based games that you could be playing that are brand new. This is the other reason too. I mean, maybe it's because I do this for a living, but you know, I have GOG, I have Steam, I have Epic, I have those 3 apps. I also have a PS Plus subscription, and I have an Xbox Ultimate Game Pass subscription. So I am bombarded with free games every month. Like I'll get 10, 15 free games every month. I barely play any of them. On top of that, I get all sorts of like exclusives for being a subscriber to these services. And Plague's Tale, great example. Someone just threw in chat. That's another great example as a great storyline series. I would even argue that New World has a good story at its core. Um, uh, Getting inundated with just games. I can't keep up with all of the amazing, great games that are being produced that have amazing stories and would be super fun to play. But I have to pick and choose. Like I can't be everywhere at once. I'm one dude and this might be my job, but I can't realistically play every single game that comes out. I have to pick, especially when I'm being given free games all the time. It's like, you know, if I try 10 or 15 games in a month, that's a busy month for me. And I'm not going to be I'm not fully playing those 10 or 15 games. If I'm covering 10 or 15 games in a month, what I'm doing is a lot of first impressions videos and early thoughts videos of just like diving in and seeing what these games feel like. Maybe out of those 10 or 15, I play 2 or 3 of them all the way through. And then July is a good month. I tried a lot of different things in early July. Um, and then we found No Man's Sky, which proved to be it's going to be a very interesting distraction into August, but it's definitely, August I feel like will be a month where I don't try a lot of different things because we know that not Starfield, No Man's Sky. We know No Man's Sky is doing really well right now, and I have some more Starfield videos to produce. So August will be me doing some more Starfield content with a lot of No Man's Sky content mixed in with game news, and then August 22nd, early access for the War Within kicks off, and then August 30th is Star Wars Outlaws. So the month of August, I might only play uh, technically 3 new releases, which will be, well, 2 new releases. It'll be technically, which will be the War Within and Star Wars Outlaws, because No Man's Sky is not a new release, neither is Starfield. Um, so it just depends on the month. But yeah, eh, there are so many good games produced. Person who wrote this on Reddit, get out there and play more games. Epic Claw asks, are you gonna play the Indiana Jones: The Great Circle when it comes out? I'm assuming you must be new or just tuning in for the first time because I talk about that just about every single day. Um, I'm going to be playing. These are the games that are on my radar that I know I'm playing, and then there's other stuff that might crop up. We are going to be playing Star Wars Outlaws, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Avowed, Dragon Age: The Veilguard, Shattered Space DLC for Starfield, Stalker 2, Space Marine 2, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, the War Within expansion for World of Warcraft. Those are all things that are happening from the middle of August till the end of the year, and those are just the known elements that I'm going to be playing this year. All of those, by the way, are games with amazing story that this reader or this writer on Reddit would be well to pay attention to. I would do well to pay attention to because they're going to be amazing story-based games. Um, so get out and play more games would be my suggestion to everybody. I'm a dude playing a dude dressed as another dude for sure. On that note, everybody, we're going to wind down the reaction part of this. I'm going to shut all the streams down, take a quick bio, and then I'm going to load up No Man's Sky, and we're going to come back and we're going to play for a little bit this morning. So if you want to hang out while I play No Man's Sky, give me 10 or 15 minutes to get the next stream up, but I do need a bio and a quick snack before then, and I'll catch you all live here in a few minutes. And if you're watching this after the fact, as this gets broken up into episodes and segments, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Daily streams happen on YouTube and Twitch, usually around 11 a.m. Central, but we do a lot of different stuff, play a lot of different games. We do live reactions, filming, chatting like this right here, and then we play all the other games. So check out all the different things that happen. Check out all the other different playlists. Check out the Discord. Check out the Patreon and all the socials, and I'll see everybody either in the next one or here in a little bit as I get the No Man's Sky stream up and going, everybody. Peace!